So a couple books. What Got You Here Won't Get You There by Marshall Goldsmith. Take the Leap, Change Your Career, Change Your Life, and Rework. I thought there were good selections. So go ahead, Jeff.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us on this lovely day, and hopefully everybody's keeping safe. And some old viewers, thank you for joining us. Sorry, some of our regular viewers, please, and some new people, thank you. Before we get started on our show today, we always have our disclaimer that says the views and opinions of our guests here are those of them and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or position of the Auto Hub show or Ian Nethercutt or myself, Jeff Polo, but we have a little bit of fun. So today is our How to Keep Your Damn Job show. And it's very interesting that we came up with this because obviously it's been a very special occurrence in the automotive industry. It's not the most famous industry for job security. Many people love the job. Sometimes people think it's sort of like loving the dog that poos on your carpet all the time, but nevertheless, it's a great job. And today we have some great guests that are joining us who are specialists in this field. We have prior guest Greg Cookson, who's with Auto Careers Group in the new Canadian vacational capital of St. John, New Brunswick, actually one of the lowest COVID places in the country. But Greg, if you could take a moment and introduce yourself, please.
Hi, everybody. Greg Cookson, as Jeff said. I'm actually now in St. Andrews by the Sea. I was in Toronto, but now I'm out in St. Andrews by the Sea, which is really nice to be out here. This is my 36th year in automotive, so I'm like a dinosaur. So I'm unemployable and anything else, really. And really, I mean, that's all I really know. And yeah, I'm just happy to be part of it. And thanks for having me on the show. Good to see some people here, and we'll go from there.
Great, thank you very much. Another prior guest is our great friend Sandy Zanino from the a real vacation capital in Sarasota, Florida. Sandy, if you can introduce yourself, but first, I really need to know what is the she, her, Ella on your LinkedIn profile?
Well, those are my pronouns. She, her, and ella in Spanish.
Okay, because I've seen that before in some other ladies, so I really was curious.
Well, you'll probably and as time moves forward, you'll see that with uh, a lot more than just me. As diversity and inclusion um, becomes more and more prominent, as it should be.
Terrific. It's actually a very important thing too, but for everybody, Sandy is the CEO and founder of Innovative Auto HR or HHR. I'm not sure.
It's just HR.
Just HR. Don't know why I put two. That's probably an itchy H finger. But perfect expert to have on somebody on how to keep their job. Sandy, take a moment. Please introduce yourself.
Sure. Well, hello, everybody. I am Sandy Zanino, and I am an HR consultant in the automotive industry. I've been in the business since 1998 when I fell into it and fell in love with it. And I am determined to bring some fun to human resources. It's definitely never boring, and I really want to change. It troubles me how often employees have such little trust in human resources. Um, I'm not having I want to bring the humanity back into HR, right? And at the same time protect dealers' profits. Because it's a balancing act, right, between that. I also am a partner in a recruiting business that is specific to automotive.
Great. Well, you know what, HR, even though it's some people, it's been a long-term thing. HR in the automotive industry seems to only be something in the last few years, and many dealers were pulled into it just kicking and screaming.
Pariah might be a good name
Pariah for sure. Great. And thank you for coming. We appreciate it. Last but far from least, we're going on from two different ends of the coin. The person that handles things if things get not so good in the business to the person that gets people into the business is June Martin, who's the employer relations consultant with the Automotive Business School of Canada in Georgian College in a very, very well, actually borderline vacation capital, Barrie, Ontario. June, if you could take a moment to introduce yourself, and thank you for
Yes.
joining us.
Thank you, Jeff. I'm really excited to be here. So my role is a little different because I'm coming from the education sector, but I've been working at Georgian College with the Automotive Business School of Canada, which is basically a number of programs that serves the automotive industry for the business side. It's not technical, just to put it out there. So I have an automotive business diploma program. I have the Bachelor of Business Automotive Management degree program. We have a Canadian Dealer Academy, which is similar to NADA, but here in Canada. And interestingly enough, I also have the Human Resource student portfolio. So I have a little bit of HR and a little bit of the automotive business side. But my role, basically, I guess if you were to look at it in a nutshell, I'm basically a job developer, or I like to call myself a connector because I connect students to their co-op opportunities, to their graduate opportunities. I don't get them the job. I just bring people together and then they have to do the work together. So that's kind of what I do. I've been doing it. I kind of fell into it too. I haven't been around as long as Greg, but I thought I was in the industry a long time when it was 19 years this year. So I'm really excited to be here, but I work with a lot of students and graduates coming in and out of all different kinds of organizations within the auto industry. So it's not just retail, it's corporate, it's aftermarket, auction houses, it's everything. And I deal with companies and students across Canada and internationally. Most colleges and universities right now, we've expanded our portfolios and brought students in from all over the world now. So we're technically international. And last but not least, I am sitting here from my beautiful office, which is a bedroom office, I like to call it. Beautiful Barrie, Ontario. And I know Barrie is not the heart of the automotive industry, but that is where the Automotive Business School of Canada is. But again, we service all of Canada and international. So thank you for having me.
Glad to have you aboard, and for those non-Canadians here, you won't get this joke, but it should be called the Automotive Business School of the Center of the Universe.
June, I was 10 when I started.
Oh, I'm sure, me too.
I had hair when I first started.
And actually, I just moved, June, from Meaford.
Oh, beautiful Meaford.
So spent a lot of time in Barrie.
Well, I just want to let you guys know that I used to be blonde a long time ago, but have to use a little bit of hair coloring these days because I do get challenged every once in a while.
It happens.
Industry, so yeah.
Well, thank you so much. I do have one question before we start with the real questions. Is it true that there is a course there called Thick Skin 100 to 300?
I maybe not officially, but unofficially, you got it.
Yeah, I guess that's might be the dermatology school.
That's it, exactly.
So, first question for everybody: the industry, has always had high turnover, and especially we found this case when COVID came in, and we've discussed this before that many dealers used trimming their staff levels as use COVID as an excuse. But we've always had a high job turnover, low job security are infamously for that. Some people had great security, and that seems to be relatively unrelated to their performance. And as I said, this has increased exponentially since COVID. But really, the one question to be answered in this entire show is how can people keep their damn jobs in this business? And I'm going to actually turn first to the person that helps people keep their damn jobs, which is Sandy.
Okay. So this is real. Thanks for the question. It really. I love the title of this whole show. Right. It kind of flips it a little bit. Because I do think that employees also have a responsibility. And part of how I would answer this question is that, you know, you have to be your own best advocate, right? And I would do certain things there are certain things that I recommend to people that I'm talking with, always be learning. We're always talking about always be selling, always be learning. If you're sales, read the sales books, follow, the big, Dave Anderson, and the follow. There's so much knowledge on social media, and now Clubhouse, with this new app. Always be learning and making connections. Um, so reading books. Also, when you get one thing that I've always told employees, right, new employees or anybody I'm talking to, figure out who is the highest performer, make friends with them, and do what they do, right? Like do what they're doing, and try and find a mentor. Nobody's going to do that for you but you. And as well as a mentor, also somebody that could be termed as like a sponsor, somebody who's not just going to give you encouragement and maybe a little guidance and give you the benefit of their experience, but somebody who has a little bit of power, who is going to put you in front of people, who's going to kind of lift you up when you're not there, right? Like, so you want to try and make those kinds of connections, or think about how you're going to strategically do it, once you get somewhere, and keep receipts. I tell this really to women in particular in our industry. Keep your receipts. For a very, very long time, I worked in this industry and worked, and just assumed that what I was doing was going to be acknowledged and rewarded. Um, and that isn't necessarily true, right? It's a busy, busy business. Dealers are putting out any number of fires at any given time. You got to keep your receipts. So that's kind of how I would answer that one.
So explain that a little bit more, please, to keep your receipts. I know I think I know what you mean, but
You know, toot your own horn, I guess, basically. you know, let it, first of all, document your accomplishments, right? Keep that documented somewhere on this year you accomplished this. And keep it somewhere. And that's why I kind of, I've heard this called receipts, right? So it's demonstrable. You can say, here, look, here it is. I remember a time where I actually had to do that. I had a spreadsheet with all the different hats that I wore, and that spreadsheet had all the things that I did. And those were my receipts. So does that make more sense?
definitely, we're always taught when we're kids and everything else, don't toot your own horn, be modest.
Totally.
And we look at the people that are braggarts and we go, oh, look at them, they're a blowhard. And then all of a sudden they become general manager, vice president, and that sort of stuff. So that's a very
Well,
good point.
there is a difference between being a braggart and just tooting your own horn. I say toot toot.
Yeah, yeah, that's a good point. And Greg, what's your position on you from your point after your what did you say, since you were 10, right? How do you
Exactly.
keep your
Thank,
damn job?
thanks for remembering. It's just keeping with the theme of how to keep your damn job. I find one of the things that happens in just talking with all sorts of dealers and candidates and people is, people get inside dealerships and they start complaining immediately. I mean, it's not done this way. I used to do it that way at this place. The complaining is what gets people out the door. And you will find, and I hear this all the time from GMs to people, we hired on Carol or we hired on Bob, and all they do is run the bus over the sales manager. Because people talk in dealerships like days of our lives. There are no secrets in days of our lives, right? And especially dealerships. Somebody gets fired in Ottawa, you hear it in Ontario. It goes that fast, right? I see a lot of head bobbing. It's so fast. And,
So are you telling me, Greg, that there's a new TV show called Dealers Days of Our Lives?
it's funny you should mention that. It's a new pilot coming out, and but that story's older than time, right? So people, keep your damn job. Stop complaining when you're at dealerships. Doesn't matter what they did at Sisley Honda. Who cares? You're over here, right? You're at Pfaff Motors now. Who cares what they did? And all this information gets back, or the sales manager doesn't do this, or he doesn't know how to desk a deal, or I can't believe he didn't put that much money in my trade. I can see it all day long in provision. The complaining gets people in more trouble, and nobody wants to hear a complainer, right? We don't we don't want to hear complainers, and that gets around so fast to dealerships and to people. I can't even tell you how fast you can change a dynamic. I also say watch what you're posting on social media. When you start posting things and complaining about the industry in its totality, a lot of eyeballs on LinkedIn and social media, and a ton of eyeballs. And it's funny when let's say you picked up and this just happened. Let's see, you're a brand new F&I person, and you sit down and you don't like the way they desk deals, or they don't like the way things get pushed to you, or you don't like the way it gets TO'd to you. And then you start typing in, I don't like how it gets done. I can't believe the industry's like this. Everybody, any GM, man, woman, everybody's following social media, and everybody's sharing, and everybody gets a post and they say, by the way, I just saw this from your guy or your girl, and they share it behind the scenes. And this happens, I can't even tell you how many times this happens. So keep them with the theme. How do you keep your damn job? Keep your opinion to yourself. There's a lot of eyeballs. There's a forum for it. If you've got a grievance with somebody, or you're not wild about how your sales manager's operating, I say have a one-on-one if it's come to that. But to post these things and to tell somebody in service that you're unhappy with how they run things out front, you just don't know who talks in a dealership. And I can tell you, I spent 30 years in the States, Sandy, and 10 of them I was dedicated to AutoNation and Sonic Automotive. That's all I did. Veritable ops and fixed ops from morning to night with AutoNation. And I can tell you, my region was from Palm Beach to Key West. There was no stores in Key West. It ended in Kendall. And if something happened in Palm Beach, by the time I got down to Nissan Kendall, it already gone through the grapevine. Did you hear they got rid of Bob? Yeah, did you see what he did? I can't even believe he said that. That's how fast it goes. and that was, before social media really got bonkers. So think about how fast these things happen. So keep how you keep your job,
Well,
keep a
social
lot of your
media.
opinions to yourself. There's a time and a place for everything, right? But socially, probably not the greatest thing to do when you start a new gig.
Well, in the old days, if it was just a phone call, you could say, wasn't me. Of course, now in social media, it pops up on the boss's desk 5 minutes later. I remember, I don't know how many times I heard things from people and talked to them about it. So, well, how did you know? Because there's no secrets in a dealership. Interesting. I had to mention that Brendan made a comment here.
Yeah.
Well, we were talking about, Sandy was talking about receipts. And he says it was funny to hear it explained this way because in a recent interview, he used the term we when describing what my team had previously accomplished. And he was told in that to explain what I did, not what we did. And it's very true in the car business. And we're all taught, let's say we, it's the team. The boss says it's we. And When you have an interview, you have to pivot. Although a very famous person, infamous person in many cases, never did a we, did all me, and he had 70 million followers a few months ago. So Sandy did respond to that. You led the team to accomplishment, and in Greg's comments, Pamela said, "My rule is to never complain unless you have a solution to the situation." They all talk exactly. And now I see June sitting there with her great ready input to this. So June, how do you tell new people, how do you keep your damn job once you get one?
Well, what's really funny is I'd like to kind of turn this question upside down because, and I know it's a buzzword, but you are your own brand, right? You're your own brand and you're responsible for where you work and what you do. And there's things at your job that obviously you can't control, but if it's not a place that's working for you, then I think it's time for you to leave your damn job and find someone or find an employer that's going to work better for you. So there's things that are, so number one is during this whole pandemic, there's always been jobs available. However, there have been people fired or let go. And yes, the excuse might have been COVID or whatever, but really the excuse was they didn't want to change. They don't like a technology. They're not going to accept technology. So now's a really good time to house clean. And that's what happened. That's what I've seen happen. I haven't talked to any or many full-time, my grads who lost their jobs just because of COVID. Most of them had lost it. If they did lose it, was because they weren't willing to change. It was a time to house clean because not willing to change with technology. The other thing is when we talk about a high turnover in the automotive industry itself, on a large scale, I don't believe has a high turnover. I believe retail has a high turnover because I deal with a lot of the OEMs and the auction houses and fleet management companies, and I'm not seeing the same turnover that I see in the retail sector. So I think we need to be careful when we say that because I think retail and specifically in the sales role, that's always a role that anything that's commission based or whatever, you're always going to have a hard time filling those positions. So that's what I'm seeing. Those roles are still there, but it's anything that has commission attached to it, it's going to create a competitive workplace and not always going to be equitable. So going back to what I said about being your own brand is you need to do the homework on the company you want to work for. You need to Google the company. You need to look at the ratings of the company because they are out there on the internet. Glassdoor is a beautiful site. And we all know, you've got Dealer Rater and sites like that, and all those reviews aren't always true. However, if you see a company that has a ton of reviews and 70% of them are bad, don't go there. Okay. So you need to do the homework. Okay. You need to be flexible. During the pandemic, everyone's being asked to do more with less resources. We always say there is no playbook when it comes to COVID, and it's true. Everyone's under a lot of stress, but you really need to ask yourself, is this where you want to be? And COVID is a chance for you to maybe make a move to go somewhere that's going to suit you better. So that's kind of my take on it.
Thanks for that, June. It was very, very good. I had a question for you since you deal with a lot of new grads, and they're probably in the younger generation. We did have a show a while ago, Old Dogs versus Young Guns.
Yeah.
Do you feel that it's a little harder for the younger grads to resist social and resist that when they're looking for a job, and maybe that hurts them when they're looking for a job, the stuff they might have posted historically, maybe even?
Yeah, we talk about that as soon as they come into the program because social can make or break you, as we all know. And it's so funny because I've been coaching our students all along about what they post and their privacy settings and things like that. And then today or yesterday, I just saw an email that came to us. We now have a social media policy, a formal policy with the college. I think we had one before, but I think we're tightening up. So definitely social can work or break them. But then again, it's a great tool. And I know we'll talk about this a little bit later. When looking for work, we at Georgian, we have a database for our grads, for our alumni to use to search for jobs. And people use that, but LinkedIn is where all of the companies are. So I think having, and again, we'll go into that later because it's part of a question, but having a professional, like using LinkedIn as their professional profile, and then making sure that Facebook and some of the more social ones are used for personal, and their privacy settings are tight, but they know never to speak of their employer. I have had students fired in the past, in the early days of social media for posting things, but now it's a part of our curriculum to make sure that they understand that and make sure they Google themselves and see what comes up. So that's again, that's my take.
Just
Fantastic.
tell me, does your social media policy tell them not to post political things on LinkedIn?
That posting is for us, and I haven't read my policy yet. Don't tell anybody yet. But yeah, that's a yeah. You don't want to be doing.
Yeah.
Fantastic. So, why do you think our industry has such a dismal record of treating employees, and how can someone keep their damn job? So, I think this is a little bit more focused towards the retail side. I mean, I have heard stories on the OEM side, including some companies, which I won't go into, who go have high turnover. But why do you think the industry has such a dismal record, in your opinion? Let's start with Greg. You're muted.
Working on it. Hang on.
There you
I'm
go.
working on it. Yeah. Couldn't get my
Thank you
mouse
to the
working too
Academy.
fast. It wasn't working that quick. Just like me, I'm just not working that fast. You know, that's a long question, right? We've talked about this in so many detail. And by the way, June, good question about good answer about OEMs. And I have a friend of mine, Jeff Boggs, that was with Manheim for 30 years. There's a lot of OEMs and a lot of people that got a lot of retention. So on the retail side of it, yeah, there's some turn, but I think you get back to it to answer your question, Ian. I think so much of it is culture, and the people. I mean, I just did some searches with the Reed brothers in Ottawa and Trevor Reed, and most of his people have been there 15, 20 years. He's the greatest guy to work for. And I think it really gets down to, June and the brand and, hey, if you don't like the culture, move on. So many people, I think it's just all culture based. Why do people stay? They really stay because, hey, I love working with Jeff, or I love working with Pamela, and I love this place because they're good to me. I might not make that much money, but what a great place to come to work. I don't sit in the driveway and my palms sweat because I get anxiety going. And I've had those jobs in my life where I've gone in and sat in the driveway and gone, oh man, I do not want to go in there. I've had those, so, and I'd trade it all day long for a great culture and a great place to work. And I think that's what you see now. And I think a lot of the turnover and the natural attrition rate that comes in the automotive space on the retail side is solely directed at culture and this turn and burn attitude. So if you have a turn and burn GM and you're carrying 15 on the roster, and you're always cutting the top three, already you're coming into that space with a high expectation of performance, which puts an undue amount of pressure on you as a person, which also forces you out the door quickly. So I think so much of it is culture and, do I like working with these people? I mean, cars is cars. Everybody's making good cars. Let's get past that, right? Everybody's got a good car. The sales process and the road to the sale is pretty standardized pretty much everywhere. It's different between Canada and the United States, but it's still the same, right? We're still in the people business. So I think you get down to, hey, do I like working with these people or not? And that's what keeps people someplace for 25 years and 10 years or 15 years or 8 years. And I wouldn't switch for an extra 10 grand if I loved working with somebody. I wouldn't do it.
Well, it's
That's
all
the
funny.
short version.
We've always said that money people say is the biggest thing, but it's probably the last thing on the list. And I think culture it's a very good point. Culture is what it all is all about. Starts at the top, and a comment June put in there: culture is important, and leadership is important too. Definitely.
Yeah,
Well,
I
I
mean,
think also, Jeff, just one more item on that. I think COVID has changed people's minds about how they view where they want to work and what's important to them. And we hear it all the time, right, Pamela? I mean, that was a good nod. It's, I think we hear it all the time with, oh, I can't tell you how many candidates I talk to in the course of a week. At least 4 or 5 a day, 25, 30 a week, and then other people calling in and just probably 60, 70 people a week. And the common theme and the common thread is, I really want to work at a place, Greg, I like to work at. I really want to go someplace I really enjoy. I'm tired of this, that, and the other thing, right? So everybody seems to have said the same thing with COVID. I really want to go to a place that I really am happy with. It seems that what has come out of COVID, right? People are selling their places in Toronto, going up to, Meaford, Collingwood, busting out, work at home, remote working, all that kind of thing. And I think people's heads are reevaluating. And I think more and more, I think the companies with the great culture will attract the great talent, because there are great people that have been laid off for no fault of their own, that has just been downsized or attritioned out. And I think the smart ones are going to grab some super top men and women, for their teams, if they can recognize that.
thanks,
Um,
Greg.
can I just make a point? There's also something else that employees need to feel like if they're in the wrong spot in a dealership, they're a lot of the time afraid to say, "Hey, I'm in the wrong spot. I'd really like to be here," because they feel like if I am not satisfied where I am, then they're just going to say, "Oh, okay, bye." But I don't think that's actually the case. I think that employers, it costs a lot of money to train a new person. So I think employers would be more open to, okay, well, let's see how we can fit you into that area. So I think employees have to be a little brave sometimes to ask for something different.
Sandy, thanks for that, Pamela. Sandy?
Okay, what a question, right? And we've been talking, and I'm so glad that June brought up that really what we're talking about is retail automotive, right? I don't know the numbers for OEM and the manufacturers, and I do know the numbers for retail, right? And they're astronomically high. And we've been talking about culture for years, and as they say, talk is cheap, right? We can talk about it to death. There's a saying that I love, the definition of insanity is doing the same thing over and over, expecting a different result. And this issue actually, I think, is because this is where the employer has to come in when we're talking about culture. And I actually think that this is going to be an imperative for our industry to survive. When I look at the generations, and I've been talking about this for years, right? Like, what is your employee value proposition for the generations that are coming into the workforce? Because right now, what our retail culture is a culture of assimilation. And when Greg was talking, and June too, June said a couple of things that I wrote down, right? Like the culture is come in, be grateful you have a job, come in on time, keep your mouth shut, don't complain, come in and do your job, like uh that is what our culture is, right? Um in a few years, 70% of the worldwide workforce, right? Or it might even be 75, is going to be millennial and Gen Z. These generations this isn't the industry. Retail automotive is not the industry that they're going to go into or stay into if we continue with this culture. We are like, so Brendan talked about for the right fit. He's looking for the right fit for him. Employers are always talking about, let's find the right fit for us, right? I really truly believe that we have to start changing. We really need to look at this and what the needs, the fears, create a value proposition for these generations that are coming in, and they're two very different. Millennials and Gen Z are they really are very different, but basic things stay the same, and I think that this is so important. It's one of the things that it's like a soapbox that I've been on, because I love this industry, right? And it hurts my heart that, like, we can't seem to, because I have worked for a dealer like Greg was talking about, right? Who has long-term employees, and there are, but when we look in general at our culture, that is what it is, this culture of assimilation. And if we can start to do that, we'll also, I believe, naturally and organically start to look at inclusion, because that is where it all is. People being celebrated for who they are, and millennials and Gen Z need that very, very much. Gen Z is this amazing generation that is not, I don't believe that they are majority white. So it's going to be just so important, I think. And that is the answer to that. That's my answer, and I'm sticking to it.
No problem. Thanks very much, Sandy. June?
I thought I was clapping. Apparently, I'm not clapping. No, honestly, I thought I was clapping. No, God love you, Sandy. I think that's so important, and the whole inclusion thing. We're all working on that so diligently, and that is a big thing in the industry, and it's inclusion about everybody. And I know women has always been an issue or whatever, but it's like, oh my God, if we can't get the women thing right, how are we going to welcome all of these other, cultures and nationalities into the fold, and sexualities and everything? So there's a lot of work to be done, and it's happening, little by little, but it's still a big deal. So again, I was just excited for Sandy saying all those things. So
Yeah.
Fantastic.
Well, thank you very much for that input. And I think that input is just great. Um, interesting though, you talk about culture, and it isn't these days. And I mean, Greg, your company is affiliated with a company that does mergers and acquisitions. Um, would you agree that we have to have a culture throughout the industry? Because, of course, in the old days, it used to just be the next generation taking over a dealership and changing the culture. These days, it's multiple owners. They sell out to somebody, and 3 years later, they sell out to a group, and 2 years later, the group sells it back to the employees. And I think, would you all agree that we have to find a way for the industry to create a culture, the retail industry?
Yeah, listen, at the end of the day, it's still a business, right? People want to make money, and dealers, the demographic on DPs, they're, anywhere from late 50s to early 60s. And, they put 35, 40 years into it, and they want out. You can't blame them for selling it, right? And they've worked ding the dong, and they've worked hard, and they want out, and they want to cash out. You can't blame anybody. And the kids, the younger ones, they don't want most of them don't want to be in that business anymore because they don't like the hours, right? And the ROI on it. I mean, how do you open? It's the old saying: how do you open up a small business in Canada, right? You open up a big one.
Yeah,
You know,
very true.
I mean, you're gonna spend 40 million on a build out or 30 million, and there's not enough time left on the planet to get that money back. So,
It is pocket change.
well, a lot of people look at it as, it's business, right? Straight business. And it's hard to, how do you quantify and wouldn't it be nice if the whole car business had a great culture and everybody was super yummy and fun to work with but it's not. You can't get techs. There's no young people wanting to go in to be techs anymore. You can't find them. There's nobody really wants to sell on the floor anymore because of that culture of straight. I mean, go auto and drive, and a few people are offering salaries now, and lots are trying to change it. So but it's years of things that have been ingrained in it's generational. So I don't know what the answer is. I wish I had that. I'd be on Jimmy Kimmel if I had that answer. Yeah.
You'd be Jimmy Kimmel.
Exactly. But I think it's getting better. I think there's lots of people that are doing really good jobs. I think, you can't put everybody in the same thing. I think there's a lot of people doing really good jobs. I mean, Auto Nation's doing a great job. Sonic, I mean, Go Auto. A lot of people are doing good jobs and trying to get better, and everybody's working on it. But it's not an easy business. Let's face it, it's not an easy business.
That's
It's
true. June, you
This time I had my hand up. Yeah, I did.
sorry.
So I'm going to lower my hand now. And I talk too much, so this is really hard for me. I'm trying to not to dominate. So please, you can mute me if you need to. But so when I think of culture, I've learned a lot, and I'm not just, I am not in the car industry itself. I'm I'm kind of, it's kind of interesting because I feel like I'm in watching in a bubble of the industry, and I kind of get to see what goes on. I'm not in it, but I get to see a lot what goes on, and I get to kind of take a step back. And one of the things that's always stuck with me is I was talking to a dealer principal, and he was saying to me how he had to fire his top salesperson, his top sales producer. And I'm like, oh, why would you do that? Because this person was selling more cars than anyone else in the industry. Not the industry, in that dealership, and top performer, whatever. But at the end of the day, this person was so toxic, it ruined the sales floor for everybody else. No one wanted to be there. Everyone was demoted. And at the end of the day, they had to let him go, or her. Sorry, him or her. Who knows? Um, and and then when that person was gone, the other people kind of came together as a team, I might add, and worked with each other and supported each other. And I know it sounds kind of nancy pansy, but guess what? I think that's what needed to happen, and I think we're going to see more of that. And Greg's seen a lot with. It's so funny because there's a lot of our grads that are working for your business, which is kind of interesting. But I think that oh my God, I'm going to lose my point now. I working for the Automotive Business School of Canada, I am seeing young people, and young at heart people. Don't get me wrong. There's people coming in their 30s and 40s and even 50s that really have a passion and want to be in the industry. So it's still there. It's not as many people as you think, but they're coming to us because they want to be in the industry. And in 1985, when our program started, we were called the Canadian Automotive Institute. It was all dealer kids. It was all dealer kids. Now maybe 20% are dealer kids or whatever. But I just want people to know that there is a captive audience of people, of young people that really do want to be in the industry. So I just want to put it up. I know there's still, they pick and choose where they want to go, but they're out there and they're looking for an organization that is going to work with them and support them with the right culture and ethics. Ethics are really important. This isn't the old used car salesman thing anymore. So I think we need to kind of keep that. Times are changing, and COVID as Greg said, is gonna make people really think about where they want to be and what they want to do and who they want to work for. So again, I really think, and I put that into the comments. Employers need to step up. There are a lot of them that are stepping up. I work with a ton of automotive groups, and as soon as I see that name come across my desk, I have an opinion because I know what's happened, good, bad, and ugly. And a lot of it's good, but some of the larger groups out there, you might be surprised at, Google them and Google employer reviews and see what's happening to the people that are working there. But at the end of the day, there's some really good stuff happening too. So I just, we have to change. The industry has to change, and it's not. It doesn't have to be drastic, but it is about supporting people within the industry, coaching them, mentoring them, but not matching them up with people who are toxic. And just because someone can sell cars doesn't mean they're a good mentor. So I'm going to jump down off my soapbox now.
I have to tell you, you brought up something very good. You and Greg actually, and actually Sandy too. We've got a whole new generation of people coming into this business, and their viewpoints on jobs are different. Greg, you mentioned about the hours, and we're seeing dealers here. I'm seeing a couple dealers here that are starting to get it. They're starting to close on Sundays, and in British Columbia, Sundays has been 35 years. You're open, and the few that closed on Sundays had their lunches eaten because everybody else would grab their business. But they're starting to look at the fact that that people are saying, my life, and I'm one of these people puts my hand up. My life was my dealerships, and family. Your family was second because, gosh, you had to provide, and we have to pivot to taking care of people. And June, your comment is you just mentioned something that people in the industry know. They know what name pops up, who not to go put an application in. I have a second part of this question to move forward, though, is we've noticed a huge increase in the number of people whose LinkedIn job titles have changed to open to new opportunities. And I've been on LinkedIn now for multiple years, obviously, but I've never noticed such a high percentage of people whose job is open to new opportunities. How can we address that? And heck, the king of new opportunities, Greg.
The king of new opportunities. I like it. I'll take it. Hey man, these are tough times, right? There's a lot of people unemployed. Simple as that. And a lot of people unemployed, and it's a very vertical market, very small window of jobs. I mean, and I can't tell you how many applicants I get from Dubai. They seem to be on top of it. I'll tell you that. I don't know how they get the postings so fast, but they're on it faster than people from Ontario. And listen, it's tough, right? I hear it in people's voices. I have empathy and sympathy. It's tough, and there's not many high roles out. I tell people, that were once GMs, hey, if you can get a job as a sales manager, take it, because that's what's out there. And you can't be everything, right? You're better off working. That old adage is true. You're better off working, looking for another job, if that's your thing, than sitting at home and doing nothing. And if you were a GM, I'd just use that as an example, and they offer you a sales manager job, and yes, it pays down now, but that's okay. You're still in the game, and maybe you advance up to GM. But you can't, you can't do anything from the sidelines, right? The old saying, you can't score sitting on the bench. If you're in the game there and you can move laterally, or most everybody's got 2, 3, 4, 5 points. And if you're that good, as most candidates say they are, right? They always say, I could get into a dealership and change their lives. And okay. then why don't you take the sales manager's position and go in and change their lives? Because the employer now is kind of in the driver's seat. You know, they really are. There's so many people to choose from. I mean, it's crazy. So I tell candidates and tell people, I just say, you know, take the jobs that are out there, because when you see the hiring all the time, LinkedIn, I'm hiring, hiring, hiring. You know, everybody's trying to get a job and trying to get eyeballs on their, you know, profile and trying to get in front of people. And I think that's why we see so many people coming to us now. It's anybody can sit at home and do easy apply. There's nothing to that. I mean, it's the interview that counts. You have to get in front of people. That's what makes the difference. You've got to get in front of people. I can apply for 40 jobs a day, but if I'm not in front of anybody selling Greg Cookson on why it makes sense to bring me on board, what difference does it make? So I think that's the key, you know, is getting in front of people. Now, how that relates to, back to your question, Jeff, you know, open to opportunities, it's great. I see it, but does it translate? Does it transfer? Is there an adoption rate? Nobody has that adoption rate to open for opportunities to. Does that translate into an interview? And I don't believe it does, sadly. I think you need a service to help you, unless self-promoting, back to Sandy, unless you are really a marketing, can really promote yourself and you have some kind of juice, it's very difficult to get in front of somebody these days because they're inundated with so many different resumes. It's overpowering. So it's not an easy answer. There's no short answer to that one. So there you go.
Great, thank you very much. I have a question actually from Pamela, which is, in today's world, how do you get in front of people? Sorry, just I got to. How do you get in front of people as everything is online, online, online these days? Greg?
You asking me?
Yeah.
Oh, I'm back. Oh, I thought you were going to Pamela. Everything.
No, no,
Sorry.
Pamela, it was Pamela's question is, how do you get in front of people as everything is online, online, online?
I was reading your question, Pamela, too, and I'm like, oh, is that for me? Is that not for me? So, boy, it's tough, man. It. I like going direct, LinkedIn to people, and you know, there's all sorts of little techniques, right? I always usually search the company. If I'm going into LinkedIn, I'll go into LinkedIn, I'll go to the company, I'll go to the people in the company, right? In the left-hand column, I'll go down to the people in the company, and then I'll search the people in the company and then look for HR in the company, reach out to them and go direct with my resume. Now, lots of times they will say, hey, you need to apply, but sometimes you can open up a dialogue, you know, and half the battle is just opening up the dialogue. You might have applied already online, but you're 60 deep in a queue. You know, especially you look at a job and you'll say how many applicants there are, right? 125. And you give up already. You're like, oh, how do I get? Yeah, you give up, right? You just go, I can't. I'm not even gonna apply. But I kind of try to. Our technique. I'll give you a little tip on how we do it. Because there's no secret sauce anymore, right? Everybody knows everything. There's no secret sauce. So when I'm looking for a company and I'm looking to bring somebody on that has a hiring, let's just use O'Regan's Automotive Group out here, and they're hiring all the time. And I'll look and I'll say they're looking for a GSM. I'll go to O'Regan's, I'll look on the side, I'll find out who the hiring person is, but I'll kind of go through a back door through a friend of mine at Dent Wizard, say, hey, can you put me in touch? And I kind of go through the back door of it and to get to that person. And you know, you got to work all the angles, but I always go direct versus applying. And then if they say, hey, you really need to apply first, okay, no problem. I just want to reach out. Or if I have applied, I'll also say, hey, just letting you know, I did apply for your job as the director of sales for Kijiji, which I did, by the way. And I was in that final group. So this is how I did this. By the way, I applied for your job. Did you happen to see my resume? Oh, yeah, we actually are meaning to contact you. Thanks for letting me know because we're swamped. So sometimes I'll send it in, find out that person and say, hey, I know you're busy, but have a peek at me. I'll just send you another copy of mine. I'll attach it on LinkedIn. You got to work all the angles back to Sandy. You got to self promote and you got to work them all because remember, HR, as you know, Sandy, and everybody knows, if I put an ad out and hiring general sales manager Toronto, they are flying in. They'll get 80 to 100 apps. And remember too, people looking at applications have their own prejudices. They look at them all the time and they say, oh, she left that job in 1 year. Oh, looks like they hop around without actually knowing the story. So you might be chopped out without actually nobody digging into your life. That's why people use recruiters, because we kind of dig into it and find out what's going on behind the resume. So remember, lots of times when people's resumes, they can get kicked out because of somebody else's prejudice looking at that resume, thinking maybe you're a job hopper, but you're actually not. Might have been some real circumstances, but there's a lot of factors that go into it.
Thanks, Greg. We're running
That's
out
the
of time
short
here.
answer.
Our days are, we're running out of time here, and I wanted to give June and then Sandy a chance to address this point. And June had her hand up. She's so polite. I love it.
Trying to be polite.
Exactly.
Okay, I'll just say really quickly because I think because Greg's portfolio of a lot more senior people working with recruiters, but when I looking at our students that are a little bit more entry level coming out of the college and things like that, they're not looking for jobs because the jobs are coming to them. So it's totally different. And I just went on the TADA Cars and Jobs site, and if you go on there, they have sales, finance, service advisor, sales and parts, business manager, HR, account. Like there are a ton of jobs out there. Now, again, maybe not for the person who's been out there for a long time. So, like I said, we don't have a problem. A lot of employers come to me to say, June, can you send, do you have any grads? It's like, I don't. They're scooped up before they graduate. And that's because, and it has nothing to do with me. I'll tell you that. I'd like to say it's because I help them.
All you.
No, it's because they're well networked. And given the COVID situation right now, this is the best time to reach out to people because everyone's sitting at home in front of their computers. They're not traveling to this country or that country or this auto show or that auto show. Now is the time to connect with them, be it through LinkedIn. Maybe you have a contact that they know that they could not even share their resume to start, just share their profile. Hopefully they have a good one. So I think COVID is actually a time to take advantage of what's out there and meeting people. There's online conferences too, and like shows like this and things like that where they can attend for free, get connected with people, talk about it. Hey, I saw you on the Auto Hub, or I did this, or I did that. Make use of this time, because one of the questions employers are probably going to ask you, what the heck did you do during COVID? Well, I sat on the couch and ate bonbons. No, I did an online Google Analytics course. There's tons of free courses to do right now. Anyway, I could go on and on, but again, I know I'm going to dominate and I don't want to do that. But LinkedIn is a huge tool for us right now. And I'm sure it is for some of the recruiters as well. But please stop using it as a dating service. That's really, you got to not do that anymore. And make sure it's professional, the picture's professional, making sure your certifications, and honest to God, those, what are they called? Where you refer someone or you recommend them. I'm sorry, but I work with thousands of students and I can't recommend everyone. If I think it's way more valuable if you can use someone in the real world as a telephone contact or email than the recommendation. So that's, again, my 2 cents. Thank you.
Terrific. Thank you. Sandy?
Hey, thanks. I'm going to try not to talk too fast. So I love everything that everybody has said. One thing that I am sure is true is that your network is your net worth, right? So in making these connections, um, I when I do recruiting, and unemployment in this country is down to 6%, right? So that's getting to be really manageable. I actually don't like it when it's like 4 because it's um I get around anyway. So, but there's something that I learned from my recruiting partner, Stephen Sweeney, who uh, who kind of counsels candidates to create a why me document, right? This should also be reflected on your LinkedIn. Make sure your LinkedIn is buttoned up, because when I'm recruiting, I'm not doing talent acquisition, right? Like, because that's what, when Greg was talking about at the dealership, right? Like, when those job ads, when those resumes are coming in, that's not what I'm doing. I'm looking at the people who are already working on LinkedIn, and I want to see the profile that reflects their accomplishments, right? So make sure that's buttoned up is what I would say and what I do say, when I am recruiting, when I'm talking to candidates, I'm like, you need to change this and this and this and this on your resume. You need to, because look, we talked about it already, where, market yourself, right? But this why me document, like, create something a little bit different that is going to catch the eye, that's on one page, isn't hard to read. This stuff is not rocket science.
That's awesome.
I'm done.
I have to say that if I saw a resume show up and the first page was why me, I'd be reading it. And so many times you read resumes that says, change the company, sold 300 times the amount. Yeah, blah, blah. Very good point.
Full disclosure, it's not my idea. I didn't come up with that one.
What's this modesty? Didn't you listen to Brendan?
No.
Come on, it was like, it should have said, it's me.
Okay, everybody needs to know you got to be authentic with especially Generation Z, right? Be authentic, because they're going to spot it and they're going to run away. Just like the Gen Z and millennial dealer kids they don't want to be in this industry, right? So they're selling. Greg talked about that.
Yeah.
So while I understand that, I also cite all materials that are not mine. If it's my idea, I will tell you.
Love it. Ian.
Great show. Thanks for everybody for coming and sharing all the thoughts. And we're looking forward to one in the future. We're going to do the matchmaking show, so stay tuned for that. We're going to have candidates and different headhunters on. It should be interesting. We're going to sort of do it off to the old dating game kind of thought, more of a fun thing.
I think we should have an app
Actually,
for car dealers called Rumble.
Rumble? And we're doing a performance car
Rumble.
show next week. So if you're a car nut or an aspiring car nut, we're going to have some performance people on. Totally different show. And at the end of the month, we're having an EV show, which is going to have a lot of big guests. So if you're interested in electric. And last but not least, we're having an after sales show coming up soon. So definitely check it out. We're going to have some people talking about what do you do after you sell something.
I do have to say this performance show is going to be really cool. We have a lady joining us from California who's a Porsche fiend. We're hoping to get a couple of some really well-known high-performance people on too. So it's going to be a total departure for us, and it's going to be a lot of fun.
So if you're a car nut and like performance, or are just interested, we're going to have a lot of people, including a local Porsche dealer in the Greater Toronto area that's going to be talking about performance on Porsche. But we're going to have hopefully a big heavy hitter with a lot of history out of Los Angeles as well, who's got 20, 30 years in performance, and actually has sold companies to big names in the industry as well.
Terrific. Thanks, guests, for joining us. Any final comments just before we wave bye-bye?
thanks, everybody.
I always learn
Thanks.
something every week, so thank you.
No worries. Thanks for attending.
Thanks, everyone.
All right. Have a great day.
Thank
Bye,
you.
everybody.
Take care.
Bye.
Bye-bye.